ready to dive into something kind of interesting. We're going to tackle the possible pluses of becoming an early riser, waking up early.
Sounds good to me.
The source material we're looking at today actually claims it can be, life-changing.
Life-changing, huh?
Yeah, a little dramatic maybe, but hey, who knows, right? We're here to break it all down, see what the science really has to say about all this early morning stuff.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Cool. So one of the first things that jumps out from our source is this idea that early birds tend to be more productive.
Yeah, that's a pretty common idea, right? And our source really, really leans into it. But what I find interesting is how they actually connect those two things, early rising and being more productive. It's not just, oh, you have more hours in the day. It's more nuanced than that. They talk about the actual quality of those early hours,
Right. So it's not just about quantity. It's more about
quality. Exactly.
Quality time. Okay. So help me out here. What exactly is it about those early hours that makes them so special for getting things done? What is it about that time?
Well, think about it. For most people, the typical morning is kind of a rush, right? Like you're scrambling, maybe hitting snooze a few times, and before you know it, the day is just controlling you. You're just reacting to everything. Our source argues that early birds, they flip the script. They use that quiet time in the morning to really focus deeply on those important tasks before the distractions of the day. Emails, phone calls, all of that stuff, before it all takes over.
So it's like a strategic advantage almost.
Yeah.
Remember that source mentioned something about willpower being higher in the morning. Could that be why early risers seem to get so much done?
That's a great point. Yeah, the research actually suggests that willpower is kind of like a muscle, gets tired throughout the day. So by tackling those tougher tasks early on, when our willpower is still fresh, we're actually more likely to get them done. It's like a fascinating link between our biology and our ability to achieve our goals.
Okay, this is making me rethink my whole snooze button situation.
Right.
But let's shift gears a little bit. What about the impact on our mental health? I've heard this idea that waking up early can actually reduce stress and anxiety. But honestly, I don't totally get the connection.
Right. It's not just about the act of waking up early. It's more about the routine that usually comes along with it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Instead of rushing around like crazy, people who wake up early tend to build in time for things like meditation, or maybe they do some journaling, or even just enjoy a quiet cup of tea or coffee.
Right.
And those mindful practices actually create a sense of calm and control before, the day's craziness actually starts.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's like setting a positive tone for the whole day instead of letting the day kind of control you. And I think the source even mentions a connection to our natural sleep cycle. It mentions circadian rhythms, right?
Oh, you're right. That's really important. Our circadian rhythm is basically like our internal clock. It's what regulates when we sleep and when we're awake.
Okay.
And when we mess up that rhythm by not having consistent sleep patterns, it can throw off our mood and energy levels and even how well we think.
Wow.
The source explains that waking up early consistently can actually reinforce our natural sleep cycle, which leads to deeper, more restorative sleep, more restful.
So even though we're waking up earlier, the quality of our sleep could actually improve. That seems counterintuitive. I don't know.
That's the thing. It's not about the quantity of sleep necessarily. It's about quality sleep. And better sleep, as you know, has so many positive effects on our mood, our focus, our physical health, even our resilience.
Okay, this is fascinating. Speaking of physical health, our source also talks about a link between early rising and actually making time for exercise. Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of making excuses about being too tired after work to work out. Does waking up early really solve that problem?
I mean, it definitely creates a window of opportunity, right?
Right.
No more competing with those evening plans or just feeling completely drained after a long day. Plus, morning exercise has its own advantages.
Oh, yeah. Didn't the source mention something about metabolism? That working out in the morning can boost it?
You got it. Morning exercise actually jumpstarts your metabolism, which means your body is going to burn calories more effectively all day long. Plus, there's the endorphin rush, feeling good, being more focused, and having more energy, and all of that can positively impact your whole entire day.
Okay, I am starting to see the appeal here. But let's be real, even with the best of intentions, time management is something I think we all struggle with.
Yeah.
Does waking up early magically give us more hours in the day?
I wish it were that simple. No, not magically. But it does give you this strategic advantage, Those quiet morning hours They really allow for focused planning and prioritizing before, the day's craziness starts. People who wake up early often find that they can actually get more done in those focused morning hours than they could, in a scattered afternoon when there's just stuff happening all the time.
So it's less about having more time and more about using the time you do have effectively.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your schedule, not letting it control you, right? And as the source points out, that proactive approach can free up more time for those long-term projects or even just personal goals that often get pushed aside when we're busy with day-to-day stuff.
This is making me think about all those books I've been meaning to read and skills I've wanted to learn, things like that. I'm also remembering that the source mentions early mornings being a great time for self-improvement.
Yeah.
What's the connection there, do you think?
Well, think about it this way. You have this quiet time, free from all those distractions, when your mind is fresh and receptive. It's an ideal window for learning new things, reading, working on passion projects, all of that stuff. The source actually points out that tons of successful entrepreneurs say they owe their achievements to their early morning routines that were dedicated to self-improvement, consistently doing that.
Wow. That's a really good point. So it's not just about having more time, it's about using that time in a strategic way to actually invest in yourself.
Yes.
And I think that the source then goes on to talk about how this early morning self-improvement can lead to a boost in mood and even confidence. How does that work? What's the connection?
Think about those small wins, like finishing a workout, planning your day, or even just taking a quiet moment for yourself.
Okay.
Those things, they have a big psychological impact. They make you feel a sense of accomplishment, they increase your self-esteem, and they actually reduce stress and guilt.
Okay, so even if you don't conquer your entire to-do list before breakfast, those small wins can really set a positive tone for the whole day.
Exactly, and that positive momentum actually builds mental resilience, which makes us better equipped to handle the challenges and setbacks that, inevitably come up throughout the day. It's a fascinating link, really, between our morning routine and our overall well-being.
I'm totally on board with all this, but I have one more question before we move on.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person who grabs whatever's quickest for breakfast when I'm rushing in the morning. I know it's not great. Does our source talk about healthy eating habits at all?
Oh, it definitely does. It talks about that all too common scenario, right?
Right.
Grabbing something unhealthy on the go because you're rushed. And it contrasts that with the early riser who has time to enjoy a nutritious breakfast that fuels both their body and their mind.
Okay, so it's not just about avoiding that mid-morning energy crash.
Right.
It's about setting yourself up for the whole day.
Precisely. Our source actually highlights specific benefits of a balanced breakfast, like improved focus, a boosted metabolism, and more stable energy levels throughout the day. And those things can have such a ripple effect on our productivity, our mood, even our decision-making all day long.
Wow. Okay. I am officially ready to dive deeper into all this.
Let's do it.
We've talked about a lot of really compelling reasons why getting up early could be such a game changer, but I think it's time to get real for a minute, It's not always easy to just suddenly become an early riser.
Yeah, for sure. And our source acknowledges that, changing our sleep schedule can be tough, especially if we're naturally night owls. It takes effort and consistency and a willingness to experiment and see what works for you.
So what would you say are some of the biggest hurdles people face when they're trying to make this kind of change?
Well, I think for a lot of people, it's that irresistible urge to hit the snooze button. Our bodies just crave those extra few minutes of sleep, especially when we're first getting used to a new wake-up time. But as our source points out, those few minutes of fragmented sleep actually often leave us feeling more groggy than if we had just gotten up right away.
Oh yeah, I've definitely experienced that. So it's not just about willpower then, it's about understanding how those snooze button minutes are actually affecting our energy levels.
Exactly. And then there are the social pressures, if your friends and family are night owls, it can be tough to stick to an early bedtime when everyone else is still up and about. It's almost like trying to live in two different time zones.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense. It's hard to create a new habit when everyone around you isn't necessarily on board. And speaking of habits, I remember the source also mentions that consistency is really important. How do we deal with, the inevitable disruptions to our routine? Late nights, traveling, or just life happening?
That's a great question. I think that's where having a strong why comes in, Like, why is becoming an early riser important to you? If you can connect this goal to something that's really meaningful, like spending more time with your family or pursuing a passion, or maybe even just feeling more in control of your day, that can give you the motivation to get through those disruptions.
So it's about remembering that bigger picture, the real reason behind the change. Okay, motivation is one piece of the puzzle, but what about practical strategies? Does the source give us any tips for actually making this shift to becoming an early riser?
It does. One of the most effective approaches, especially if you're new to this whole early rising thing, is to gradually adjust your wake-up time. So instead of trying to jump from like 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. all at once, start by setting your alarm 15 minutes earlier each day.
Okay, that seems much more manageable. Small, consistent changes versus like a huge, jarring shift.
Exactly. Another helpful tip is to create a calming bedtime routine, something that tells your body it's time to wind down. The source suggests things like taking a warm bath, reading a book, or listening to relaxing music.
Right, it's about setting yourself up for success with restful sleep. I really like that the source doesn't just focus on the morning routine, it also talks about how important it is to have a good night's sleep.
Absolutely. It also reminds us that our sleep environment can make a big difference. Like, is your bedroom dark, quiet, and cool? Those things can help with optimal sleep. And don't forget, creating a consistent sleep schedule, even on the weekends, can really help regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
Okay, so this is a holistic approach, not just about forcing yourself to get up earlier.
Precisely. And speaking of a holistic approach, let's tie this back to our earlier conversation about time management. The source actually makes a really interesting point about how early rising can completely change our relationship with time.
Oh, I'm all ears. Time management is a constant struggle for me, so any insights on that would be great.
The text suggests that those quiet morning hours, before the day's demands really kick in, can be a secret weapon for reclaiming control over our schedules.
So it's a proactive way to manage time instead of just reacting to everything that gets thrown at us.
Exactly. And early risers often say that they feel less rushed and less stressed because they've had that time to actually plan their day, prioritize tasks, and even carve out time for those activities that often get squeezed out,
That sounds amazing. I remember the source also talks about working on those long-term projects. Is that connected to this idea of proactive time management?
Totally. It's easy to get caught up in the everyday stuff and let those bigger goals or dreams fall by the wayside. But having those focused hours in the morning can be so helpful for making progress on those long-term projects, like writing a book, starting a business, learning a new skill, whatever it is.
It's about finally giving ourselves the space to pursue those passions, the things we always tell ourselves we'll get around to someday. But, what about those days when we wake up and we're already feeling stressed or overwhelmed? I've always thought of mornings as my peak stress time. How can getting up early possibly reduce stress?
That's a common perception, for sure.
Yeah.
But the source actually challenges that idea. It argues that, kind of ironically, early rising, when it's done in a mindful way, can reduce stress by creating a sense of calm and control. Think about it. Waking up before everyone else, having a quiet moment to yourself, feeling like you're ahead of the game, those things can be such powerful antidotes to that typical morning rush.
So it's about shifting your perspective, starting the day on your own terms, and not just reacting to everything.
Precisely. And the text highlights several other stress-reducing benefits of early rising. Things like reducing decision fatigue, making fewer decisions in the morning, like what to wear or eat, which frees up mental energy for more important choices later on.
Yeah.
It also talks about having time for mindfulness practices like meditation or deep breathing, which can help us better manage stress throughout the day.
Right.
And of course, there's the physical activity piece. We already talked about how exercise is a proven stress reliever, so getting that done in the morning can boost your mood and set a positive tone for the day.
Wow, it's fascinating how these small tweaks to our morning routine can have such a big impact on our stress levels all day long.
It really is. And speaking of positive ripple effects, let's talk about creativity. The source actually argues that those early hours can be like a wellspring of inspiration and innovation.
Oh, interesting. I always wondered about the connection between sleep and creativity. Is there any actual science to back that up?
There is. Studies have actually shown a strong correlation between early rising and increased creativity. The text explains that during those quiet morning hours, before our analytical minds fully kick in, our inhibitions are lower and our imaginations are more active.
So it's like tapping into a different state of mind, one that's more receptive to new ideas and creative breakthroughs.
Exactly. And the source suggests a couple of strategies for actually harnessing this creative potential, like creating a dedicated space for your creative work, whether that's a quiet corner in your home, a cozy coffee shop, or even just a peaceful spot in nature.
Right, it's about setting the stage for inspiration.
Exactly. The text also emphasizes how important it is to have a playful, experimental mindset. Like, don't be afraid to try new things, make mistakes, and think outside the box.
Okay, so it's about letting go of perfectionism and letting those creative juices flow freely. You know, all this talk about creativity and self-improvement makes me think about the bigger picture of personal growth. Does our source talk about that connection too?
It does. It suggests that early rising can actually be like a catalyst for really profound personal transformation. By starting our day with intention, clarity, and focus, we set ourselves up for a day of growth and progress.
It's about aligning our actions with our values and our goals.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of the benefits that stand out to you from the text?
Well, it talks about increased self-awareness. Those quiet mornings give us time for reflection and introspection, which helps us connect with ourselves and figure out what we need to work on. It also mentions enhanced discipline. Like sticking to an early rising routine can boost our self-discipline, which can then spill over into other areas of our lives. And of course, there's the greater goal achievement piece. By actually dedicating those focused morning hours to going after our goals, we're just naturally more likely to succeed.
Right, it's about setting ourselves up for success. And it's so fascinating how something as simple as changing our wake-up time can have such a big impact on our personal growth journey. You know, all of this is making me wonder how we can use this new energy and focus to improve our relationships with the people we care about.
That's such a good point. I mean, does the source address that at all? Like, how can being an early riser actually make our relationships better?
It does. The text actually makes a compelling case for how early rising can enhance our relationships.
Okay, I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. How often are we rushing through our mornings, barely having time to connect with our loved ones before we're out the door and caught up in the day's craziness?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Right. Early rising can create space for deeper, more meaningful interactions.
Okay, so it's like we're reclaiming those precious moments before the demands of the day take over.
Exactly. And the source points out a few ways this can play out, like having more quality time together. Waking up earlier allows for shared morning rituals, like enjoying coffee together, having meaningful conversations, or just cuddling on the couch.
Oh, that's sweet.
Right. And it also mentions increased patience and presence. When we feel less rushed and stressed, we tend to be more patient and present with our loved ones.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then there's the opportunity for shared activities. Having that extra time in the morning can open up opportunities to do things together, like going for a walk, working out, or making a healthy breakfast.
It's amazing how these small changes in our schedule can create such a positive ripple effect in our relationships. It's like a reminder to slow down and appreciate those connections. And speaking of appreciating things, didn't the source connect early rising to gratitude as well?
It did. It talks about how those quiet morning hours can be a really fertile ground for cultivating gratitude.
Oh, tell me everything. I'm always looking for ways to bring more gratitude into my life.
Okay, imagine this. You wake up before the rest of the world and just take a moment to really appreciate the simple things in your life. The warmth of the sun, a good cup of coffee, the sound of birds singing, you know, all those little things that we often take for granted.
It's like hitting the pause button before the day's craziness starts.
Yeah.
And taking a moment to appreciate those little things that we often miss.
Exactly. And the source highlights how this practice of morning gratitude can have a huge impact on our perspective, our relationships, and just our overall happiness.
Okay, it's about setting the tone for a day of appreciation and joy. You know, all this talk about gratitude is making me want to get outside and connect with nature. Does the source talk about that at all?
It does. The text makes this beautiful argument for how early rising can give us a whole new way to experience the beauty and wonder of nature.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I've always found so much peace and rejuvenation in nature, but it's hard to make time for it sometimes. How can getting up early help with that?
Well, picture this. You wake up before everyone else, step outside, and just breathe in that fresh air, listen to the birds chirping, and watch the sunrise paint the sky with all these amazing colors. It's a sensory experience that can really awaken your soul.
It's about making a conscious effort to connect with the natural world before the day's demands take over.
Exactly. And the source also talks about all the benefits of incorporating nature into our morning routines. Like, studies have shown that spending time in nature can lower stress hormones, reduce anxiety, and just improve our overall well-being.
Okay, so it's not just about getting exercise, it's about connecting with nature on a deeper level.
Right. And being in nature can also boost our energy and focus. The fresh air, the sunlight, the natural beauty can really invigorate our senses. And don't forget, nature has always been a huge source of inspiration for artists, writers, and innovators.
This is making me really rethink my morning walks. It's not just about exercise, it's about tapping into that rejuvenating power of nature.
Exactly. And speaking of rejuvenation, let's shift gears a little bit and explore the connection between early rising and mindfulness. The source actually emphasizes how those quiet morning hours can be a perfect time for practicing mindfulness.
Oh, I love this. Mindfulness is such a powerful practice for bringing more peace and presence into our lives. But like you said before, I often struggle to find the time. So how can getting up early help with that?
Okay, so imagine waking up before the rest of the world and taking those first few moments of your day to just be present. You could practice mindful breathing, meditation, or even just sit quietly and reflect.
It's like creating a sacred space for ourselves to connect with our breath, our bodies, and the present moment before all the day's demands start pulling us in a million different directions.
Exactly. The source also highlights several benefits of making mindfulness a part of our morning routines. It helps us reduce stress and reactivity by becoming more aware of our thoughts and emotions.
Okay.
So we can respond to stressful situations with more calm and clarity. It also increases our focus and concentration. Regular mindfulness practice strengthens our ability to stay focused, which can help us in all areas of our lives, and it enhances our self-awareness and emotional regulation.
Right.
When we're more in tune with our inner world, we develop a better understanding of ourselves and learn how to manage our emotions more effectively.
Wow, this is really inspiring. It sounds like getting up early isn't just about productivity or checking things off a to-do list. It's about creating a more mindful, present, and fulfilling life.
I think you're right. And, speaking of fulfillment, let's connect this back to the idea of purpose. The source actually makes the compelling case for how early rising can help us live a more purposeful life.
Oh, this is something I'm so passionate about. I'm always searching for ways to live a more meaningful life and make a positive impact on the world. So I'm really interested to hear how early rising fits into all of that.
Well, the source suggests that early rising can be a catalyst for discovering and living our purpose. By starting our day with intention and clarity, we create space to really connect with our values, set meaningful goals, and actually take steps towards those goals.
Okay, so it's about using those precious morning hours to fuel our passion and commitment to making a difference.
Yes. What are some of the specific ways you see this playing out in people's lives?
Well, it definitely gives us more time for purposeful activities. Getting up early frees up time for things like volunteering, pursuing creative projects, or working on projects that contribute to the greater good, all those things that align with our values and passions. It also enhances our focus and energy for meaningful work. When we prioritize our purpose in life, we often find that our work becomes more fulfilling and energizing, and it makes us more resilient in the face of challenges. Having a strong sense of purpose gives us the strength and motivation to overcome obstacles and persevere through tough times.
Those are such important points. It's amazing how something as simple as changing our wake-up time can have such a profound effect on our journey of finding and living our purpose.
It really is. And this is kind of unexpected, but the source also talks about early rising having a connection to spirituality.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, it talks about how those quiet early morning hours can be a special time for connecting with our inner selves, with nature, and with that energy that flows through everything. It's a time for contemplation, prayer, meditation, or just simply being present in the stillness of the morning.
It's like creating a sacred space for ourselves to experience a deeper sense of awe and connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And the source goes on to talk about some specific ways that early rising can make our spiritual connection stronger. It talks about having more stillness and tranquility. Those early mornings provide a natural escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, allowing us to tap into our inner peace and experience a sense of tranquility. It also mentions heightened awareness and intuition. When our minds are clear and calm, we're more open to subtle insights, intuitions, and synchronicities, all those things that can guide us on our spiritual path. And of course, it talks about a deeper connection with nature. Spending time in nature, especially in the early morning hours, can really evoke a sense of awe, wonder, and interconnectedness with the natural world.
That's so beautifully said. It seems like early rising isn't just about personal productivity or even self-improvement. It's about cultivating a deeper sense of connection, meaning, and purpose in our lives, which can definitely have a spiritual dimension.
I completely agree. But let's bring this conversation back down to earth for a minute and think about what early rising looks like in our super technology-driven world.
Oh, that's a great point. Technology is such a huge part of our lives, and I think we're all trying to find ways to create a healthier relationship with our devices.
Exactly. And I'm wondering if our source addresses this at all.
It does. It suggests that early rising can be a way to create some distance from the constant notifications and distractions of the digital world.
Okay, so it's about creating a buffer between our sleep and the onslaught of digital stimulation, like a chance to wake up without immediately being bombarded by emails and social media.
You got it. Imagine waking up before everyone else and resisting that urge to check your phone right away. Instead, you use those precious morning hours to do things that nourish your mind, body, and soul. Activities that don't involve screens or technology.
It's about taking back our time and attention from the digital world and using it to create a more fulfilling life, one that's based on our own intentions, not the demands of our devices.
Exactly. And the source highlights several ways we can make this happen. It talks about reducing digital overload. By starting our day without technology, we give our minds a chance to fully wake up and be present in the moment before we get sucked into the digital world. It also mentions increased focus and productivity. When we minimize distractions in the morning, we're naturally more focused and productive throughout the day. And it talks about enhanced creativity and inspiration. Studies have actually shown that spending time in nature and doing things that don't involve screens can boost our creativity and inspire new ideas.
This is such a powerful reminder to be more mindful of our technology use, to create boundaries and prioritize real-life experiences.
I agree. It's about finding that balance. While we're talking about being intentional with our time and energy, I'm curious to know if the source mentions anything about financial well-being.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm always trying to learn more about managing money and creating a more secure future.
Well, the source suggests that early rising can actually create space for financial clarity, planning, and growth.
Wow, really? I wouldn't have thought of that connection, but it makes sense. Tell me more.
Well, imagine waking up before everyone else and using those quiet morning hours to review your finances, set financial goals, and take action toward achieving your financial dreams. It's like having a dedicated time slot for financial awareness and empowerment.
It really is. It's like setting the stage for financial success.
Exactly. And the source highlights a few ways that early rising can help us improve our financial well-being, like having more time for financial planning and management. Getting up early gives us dedicated time to track our expenses, create budgets, research investment opportunities, or even work on side hustles. And it also gives us enhanced focus and clarity for decision-making. When we're well-rested and free from distractions, we tend to make better financial decisions. Plus, it can help us reduce financial stress. Taking control of our finances and making progress toward our financial goals can really reduce financial anxiety and give us more peace of mind.
Okay, this is making me feel more empowered already. So it's not just about personal productivity, it's about taking charge of our finances and creating a life of abundance and financial freedom. I love it.
Me too. And while we're talking about taking charge, let's not forget about that dreaded topic of procrastination. I think it's something we all struggle with at times.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm always looking for ways to overcome procrastination and achieve my goals more efficiently. Does our source offer any guidance on that front?
It does. It suggests that early rising can actually be a powerful tool for overcoming procrastination. It allows us to tap into our willpower and make decisions without overthinking things.
I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
Well, just imagine waking up before the rest of the world and using those quiet morning hours to tackle those tasks you've been putting off. Those things on your to-do list that you keep pushing back.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I have a whole list of those.
I hear you. But think about how good it would feel to start the day by getting those things done. It's like outsmarting our inner procrastinator by taking action before we have a chance to talk ourselves out of it.
I love that. So we're taking advantage of that early morning energy and focus.
Exactly. And the source highlights a few reasons why this approach can be so effective. It says that our willpower is at its peak in the morning, so it's the perfect time to tackle those challenging or less than desirable tasks. Plus, we have fewer distractions in the early morning, It's a quiet environment where we can really concentrate on the task at hand without interruptions, and it creates momentum and motivation. Completing those tasks early in the day gives us a sense of accomplishment and motivates us to keep going throughout the day.
Okay, I am totally on board with this approach. It's like a whole new way to structure my day and maximize my productivity. And, at the end of the day, it's all about creating a life that's filled with joy, purpose, and fulfillment, right? Does the source connect early rising to happiness in any way?
It does. The text argues that early rising can actually contribute to greater happiness and overall well-being. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports our physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
That's so exciting. I'm always on the lookout for ways to bring more joy into my life, so I'm really curious to hear how early rising fits into that.
Well, imagine waking up before everyone else and starting your day with a sense of intention, gratitude, and peace. It's like laying the foundation for a positive and joyful day.
It's about setting the stage for a happier and more fulfilling life.
Exactly. And the source points out a few ways that this can show up in our lives, like we have more time for activities we enjoy. Early rising frees up time for hobbies, passions, and those things that bring us joy and make us feel alive. It also helps reduce stress and anxiety, as we've already discussed. And when we feel less stressed, we naturally experience more happiness and well-being. Plus, it gives us time for self-care. Early mornings can be dedicated to taking care of ourselves, whether that's through exercise, meditation, or simply enjoying a quiet cup of coffee. All those things nourish our minds, bodies, and souls, which ultimately contributes to our happiness.
It's incredible how these seemingly small shifts in a routine can have such a big impact on our happiness and well-being. It's a reminder that taking care of ourselves and prioritizing our joy is so important.
I couldn't agree more. And while we're on the topic of well-being, I'm also wondering if this source touches on the connection between early rising and physical health.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm always looking for ways to improve my health and feel my best. So, does early rising have a role to play in that?
It definitely does. The source highlights how those early hours can be a time for rejuvenation, movement, and nourishing our bodies. It's like a time to reset and recharge before the day begins.
I love that. Give me all the details. How can we make those early mornings work for our physical health?
Okay, so picture this. You wake up before the rest of the world, and you dedicate those first moments to taking care of your physical needs. You nourish your body with a healthy breakfast, get your blood flowing with a workout or a yoga session, and maybe even just step outside to breathe in some fresh air and soak up the sunlight. It's all about setting a foundation for a healthier and more energized day.
Okay, so we're prioritizing our physical health right from the start.
Exactly. And the source points out some key benefits of making these healthy habits a part of our early morning routine. Like, it can improve our sleep quality. As we discussed earlier, getting up early helps regulate our circadian rhythm, which means we sleep more deeply and wake up feeling more refreshed. It also helps us be more physically active. Having that dedicated time in the morning for exercise makes it less likely that we'll skip it later in the day when other things come up, and it can lead to healthier eating habits. When we have more time in the morning, we can make a more mindful and nutritious breakfast, which sets us up for making healthier choices throughout the day.
This is so inspiring. It sounds like early rising isn't just about personal productivity. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports our physical health and vitality over the long term.
It's about feeling our best and having the energy to do the things we love. And while we're talking about feeling alive and energized, I think it's interesting how the source connects early rising to living a more adventurous life.
Oh, tell me more about that. I've always been drawn to trying new things and pushing myself outside my comfort zone.
Well, the text suggests that those early morning hours can be a great springboard for a more adventurous life. Imagine waking up before everyone else and setting an intention for the day, envisioning yourself trying new things, exploring new places, and stepping outside of your comfort zone.
It's like using those quiet moments to awaken our inner explorer and remind ourselves that we're capable of anything.
Exactly. And the source points out a few ways this can play out in our lives, like we'll naturally have more time for adventures. Waking up early gives us more time for things like hiking, traveling, taking classes, or pursuing hobbies that broaden our horizons. It also increases our energy and enthusiasm. When we're well rested and feeling energized, we're more likely to embrace new experiences and try things that might have seemed intimidating before. And it makes us more open to new opportunities. When we start our day with a sense of adventure, we become more aware of opportunities for growth, exploration, and excitement that we might have otherwise missed.
I love this idea. It's a reminder that we can create a life filled with adventure and new experiences, no matter how busy our lives might seem. And, all this talk about living a more adventurous life is making me think about how we can use that energy and inspiration to make a positive impact on the world. Does the source address that at all?
It does. It emphasizes how those early hours can be a time for not only inspiration, but also action and impact. It's about aligning our actions with our values and using our unique gifts to make a difference.
I'm so on board with that. I'm really passionate about making a positive impact. So I'm curious to hear how this shift in our daily routine can contribute to a greater cause.
Well, imagine this. You wake up before everyone else, and you take a few moments to set an intention for the day, focusing on how you can contribute to something bigger than yourself. This could be through acts of kindness, volunteering your time, supporting a cause you believe in, or using your skills and talents to make a positive difference in the world.
It's about using those early hours to fuel our passion, purpose, and commitment to making the world a better place.
Exactly. And the source highlights a few specific ways we can make this happen. It talks about having more time and energy for those activities that really matter. Early rising frees up time and energy for things that align with our values and make a positive contribution to the world. It also gives us enhanced focus and clarity for problem solving. When our minds are clear and calm, we're better equipped to tackle complex issues and find creative solutions to the challenges facing our communities and the world at large. And it strengthens our resilience and determination. Having a strong sense of purpose gives us the fuel we need to persevere through obstacles and continue working towards positive change.
This is so inspiring. It's a beautiful reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, and something as simple as changing our wake-up time can be a catalyst for positive action. And speaking of action, I think it's time to shift gears and talk about the practical side of actually becoming an early riser.
I agree. We've explored a lot of incredible benefits, but now let's dive into the nitty-gritty of making this early rising magic happen in our own lives.
Okay, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and make this happen. What specific tips and strategies does our source recommend?
Well, as we discussed earlier, one of the most important steps is to gradually adjust your sleep schedule. Instead of trying to make a drastic change overnight, start by setting your alarm 15 minutes earlier each day until you reach your desired wake-up time. It's all about making those small, consistent changes so that it's easier to adapt.
Small steps, consistency. Got it. But let's be real, the snooze button is powerful force. How do we resist the temptation to hit it, especially when we're first adjusting to an earlier wake-up time?
The source offers a few helpful strategies. One is to place your alarm clock across the room so you actually have to get out of bed to turn it off. That makes it less likely that you'll just roll over and fall back asleep.
That's a good one. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Another tip is to use a light therapy alarm clock. These clocks simulate sunrise, gradually brightening the room, which can help signal to your body that it's time to wake up naturally.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like bringing the sunrise indoors.
Right. And lastly, don't linger in bed once your alarm goes off. Get up and start your day right away. The longer you stay in bed, the more tempting it becomes to just drift back to sleep.
Okay, those are some great practical tips. But what about those of us who have trouble falling asleep earlier? Does the source have any suggestions for creating a better sleep environment?
It absolutely does. The text really emphasizes the importance of creating a relaxing and sleep-inducing atmosphere in your bedroom, like making sure your bedroom is dark. You can use blackout curtains or an eye mask to block out any light that might be interfering with your sleep.
Okay, that makes sense. Light can definitely be stimulating.
Right. It also recommends keeping the room cool. Most people actually sleep better in a cooler environment, around 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And of course, minimizing noise as much as possible. If you live in a noisy area, you might want to use a white noise machine or earplugs to block out any distracting sounds. And another important tip is to reserve your bed for sleep and intimacy only. Avoid working, watching TV, or using electronic devices in bed. That way, your brain starts to associate your bed with sleep and relaxation, making it easier to fall asleep when you want to.
It's about creating that clear boundary between sleep and wakefulness.
Exactly. But what about those nights when our minds are racing and we just can't seem to quiet our thoughts? What does the source recommend for those situations?
Oh yeah, that's me all the time.
Well, the source suggests incorporating relaxing activities into your bedtime routine. Things like taking a warm bath or shower. The warmth can really help relax your muscles and prepare your body for sleep. Or you could read a book or listen to calming music. The key here is to avoid screen time for at least an hour before bed, as the blue light emitted from screens can interfere with our sleep hormones. And if you're still struggling to quiet your mind, you could try some relaxation techniques like deep breathing exercises, meditation, or progressive muscle relaxation. These practices can help calm both your mind and body, making it easier to fall asleep.
Okay, so it's about actively winding down. And okay, so we're back, and we've really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? Talking about all these potential benefits of waking up early, the science behind it, and even some practical ways to make it a reality.
Yeah, it's been a really fascinating exploration. We've seen how something as simple as changing our wake-up time can actually impact so many different areas of our lives, from our productivity and mental health to our relationships and even our sense of purpose.
It's been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm walking away with so much new information and inspiration. But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. Like, if you had to sum it all up, what would be the biggest takeaway from all of this?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that early rising isn't just about like a productivity hack or a way to squeeze more hours into our day. It's really about creating a ripple effect of positive change throughout our entire lives. It's about aligning ourselves with our natural rhythms, tapping into our willpower when it's at its peak, and setting the stage for a day that's filled with intention and purpose.
I love that. And it's not about becoming some kind of superhuman early riser. It's about finding what works for each of us individually and making those small, consistent changes that can ultimately lead to big results.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this is a journey, and it's going to look different for everyone. There will be days when you hit the snooze button, days when life throws you a curveball, and days when you might even question why you're doing this.
Yeah, it's about embracing those challenges as part of the process and remembering the bigger picture. Why is this important to us? Why do we want to become early risers? What are we hoping to gain from this experience?
Exactly. And I think that over time, as you start to experience those cumulative benefits, those early mornings might actually become your favorite part of the day.
I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has been such an eye-opener for me. I feel like I have a completely new perspective on the potential of early rising.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I hope it sparked a sense of curiosity and possibility for everyone listening.
It definitely has. So for all our listeners out there, whether you're already an early bird or you're a night owl who's thinking about giving those early morning hours a try, we have one final thought to leave you with.
If you could consistently wake up with that extra time and mental clarity, what's that one goal or project that you would prioritize? What would you finally make time for? And why is that goal or project so important to you? Let that question be your guide as you explore the possibilities of early rising.
That's such a powerful question. It's about connecting this change to something that's truly meaningful, something that makes you excited to get out of bed and greet the day.
And remember, every journey starts with a single step, or in this case, maybe a slightly earlier alarm.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of early rising. It's been such a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
It's been my pleasure as well. And everyone listening, until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and maybe give that early alarm a try. Sweet dreams, everyone.
Yeah.